All right, we want to welcome everybody. I know that folks are just beginning to tune in and to roll onto the feed, but thank you for joining us. I'm here in Laredo, Texas, on the U.S. side of the U.S.-Mexico border, and at one of the busiest land ports in the United States of America, one of the busiest land ports in the hemisphere. This is the Columbia International Bridge right here in Laredo, Texas. And behind me, if you can see it, are trucks that are lined up as far as we can see that have within them the things that we want in this country. The cars, the televisions, the food, the produce, the things that we expect to see in our stores, on the shelves of our supermarkets, the things that we depend upon to make sure that we can live our lives. And this backup that you see that's been going on now for almost a week is not just a function of being on the border. It has a lot to do, and in fact, it has everything to do with the governor of the state of Texas, Greg Abbott, who has mandated an inspection for each one of these trucks coming north into the United States by the Department of Public Safety. Those are the state troopers, to supposedly increase security at the border. But all those troopers can do is look at the tire pressure. They can look at how the engine of that truck is running. They can perform a safety inspection on the vehicle itself, but they're unable to actually look at the cargo to see if there's any trafficking of illegal drugs or human beings for that matter. So it's a political stunt more than it is anything else. But the cost is coming right here to the people of Laredo, to the folks who work, the truck drivers behind me who've been on this bridge almost all day, who on a typical day might be crossing 4 times, but right now are only crossing 1 time, and they get paid per crossing, by the way. So try hiring truck drivers if this goes on much longer. What you see behind me is not just stalled trucks. You see a supply chain problem that is the making of the governor of the state of Texas, making it harder for goods to get to the consumers in America who are waiting on them, making it harder for things to come into small business owners who depend on them to be able to literally stay in business and keep their employees on the payroll. What you see behind me is inflation. It's going to drive up prices here in the state of Texas and across the country. And what you see behind me, if this lasts much longer, are job losses throughout Laredo, which is a trade community that depends on the flow of traffic and trade and trucks on this international bridge. You're going to see job losses throughout the state of Texas. There are 600,000 jobs that depend on the U.S.-Mexico trade that takes place here at the Columbia Bridge in Laredo. And you're going to see job losses across the country. 6 million jobs nationally depend on what we have here. This is the cost and consequence of Greg Abbott and the kind of political stunts at the border that doesn't bring security or safety, but in fact creates more chaos where our country meets the rest of the world. Now, I have been hearing about this nonstop since I arrived in Laredo today. I heard about it yesterday in Del Rio. I know I'm going to hear about it in McAllen tomorrow. Our border communities keep the economy of the state of Texas, keep the economy of the United States of America going. And when you shut down legitimate travel, traffic, and trade, and these trucks here on the border, you start to shut down the economy of Texas and of the United States of America. To help explain what's going on, I'm going to invite my friend Rafa to come up here and join me. Rafa, why don't you come up? Rafa is the president of TUM, which is an asset-based trucking company. So Rafa's drivers are literally behind the wheel in the cabs of those trucks that have been on that bridge now for 4, 5, 6 hours, just stalled, waiting for these DPS inspections that are going to do nothing to improve the safety of our communities. Rafa, first tell us a little bit about your business. What do you all do? What are your drivers bringing over to the United States right now?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Beto. Our company brings everyday goods across the border every day. So everything from auto parts that are used to make cars up north, food, consumer goods, electronics, appliances, things that Americans use on a daily basis. That's what we're bringing across the border on a daily basis. So
things that we manufacture here. So you mentioned auto parts. So they may manufacture those auto parts in Mexico. Rafa's company and drivers bring them over to the U.S. and then other truck drivers, American truck drivers, meet the loads here and take them up to Michigan and Ohio, right, where we complete the manufacture of these cars and trucks in the United States.
Exactly. So we're bringing these goods from Mexico on a daily basis. Then on the U.S. side of the border, you're having U.S. truck drivers from all over the country come and pick these goods up, and then take them back up north where they eventually go to the American consumer.
So your drivers, you were telling me earlier, get paid by the number of crossings that they make. And his drivers are certified, they've got all the paperwork, there's all the documentation for the cargoes. This is the kind of legitimate travel and trade, legal, with all the accompanying paperwork. They have to go through brokerage companies, attorneys, accountants to make sure that they get it right. But those drivers are the lifeblood of your company, of our economy. What does it mean for them when they can only cross one time a day instead of 4 times a day with these loads of consumer goods that we're trying to bring into the United States?
To be honest, I don't know how they do it. These drivers depend on crossing the bridge at least 3 to 4 times a day to be able to make a living. Right now, with what you're seeing, they're only able to cross maybe once a day. It's only a matter of time before they get fed up, and justifiably so, and they just decide to go home and not cross until these inspections are taken away. And so that's going to cause an even bigger problem than the one we already have.
I'm sure, like a lot of industries and a lot of businesses, it's a struggle right now to hire employees. I'm guessing this is going to make it even harder to hire someone to be a truck driver when, if you get paid by the crossing and you are typically crossing 3 to 4 times and you can only cross once, what's that going to do to your business and your ability to stay in business going forward?
Well, it's an unfortunate situation because it was already a pretty difficult time for trucking companies in general. Equipment prices have gone up because of inflation. Fuel prices have gone through the roof as well. And there's already a trucking driver shortage in the country of approximately 100,000 drivers. Then you add this to it, which is, in my opinion, unnecessary, and it makes it that much more difficult. And I feel for them. Because they're here all day and they're sacrificing so that the U.S. consumer can get their goods. And so, but it's only a matter of time before they get fed up. And so, I feel for them.
So we've been here for talking for about 5 or 6 minutes. We parked, we set up for about 10 minutes before that. And I don't think, unless you all have seen it, I haven't seen a single truck move a single inch in the time we're here. And again, this can get a little complicated, so I'm going to ask Rafa to help me break this down. But what the governor of the state of Texas did last Wednesday is he said 100%, so every single one of these trucks is going to have an inspection from the state of Texas after they've already waited in line. They've crossed through the federal inspection point to make sure that they've got all their paperwork in order, everything's legal. And my understanding is that those DPS inspectors are not actually even able to look inside to check the cargo. They can only see if the truck is running right. Can you tell us what this inspection does and whether it adds any value to what we're doing here when it comes to trade or security or safety?
Of course, yeah. So these drivers come across the Mexican side of the border and they're already inspected, or they're already processed through by U.S. Customs. And so this is a secondary inspection by Texas DPS who already has a fixed location on site at all times. Usually what they do is they flag down trucks that look problematic, that look like they might have mechanical issues. They flag them down and then they perform inspection on a certain amount of vehicles. But to expect them to inspect every single vehicle when there's thousands, literally thousands across on a daily basis is, in my opinion, unreasonable. And that's what they're doing. Every single one of these trucks is being thoroughly inspected, and those inspections can take 10, 15, 20 minutes per truck. And so that's what's causing the backlog. That's why these trucks are sitting at the bridge for 4 or 5, maybe even 6 hours at a time. And that's what's going on.
We were talking earlier, some ports of entry, and we'll be at them tomorrow in the Rio Grande Valley, are seeing wait times for drivers of not even just hours but days. And we're seeing stories of produce spoiling in these refrigerated trucks because those refrigerators run on diesel. The diesel's running out, they cannot refuel. The trucks are running out of gas, And what happens when that truck finally does cross and gets to the warehouse and all the food is spoiled is that importer is out the money that they've invested, and then the destination that they were going to bring these goods to is not going to be able to get them. So it disrupts the supply chain throughout the United States of America,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
I mentioned earlier there's hundreds of thousands of jobs in Texas, millions of jobs in the United States, but here in Laredo, I mean, I think of this town, this is a trading town.
Of course.
Most of the people I meet either are working for brokerage or warehouse or logistics or truck driving companies, they're accountants or attorneys who work on these things, or they have a family member who's doing this. So this is a serious blow to the community, and I've seen your mayor speak out against this. I've heard your local elected officials, your member of Congress say, listen, we're all for border security and safety, but this isn't making us safe, and this is really hurting business in our community. What are you hearing from others in your industry, and maybe others who have trucking companies or logistics companies, or even other people in the community right now about this?
You know, what I'm hearing from other people in the industry is that we just got through a very difficult time with the pandemic, right? And so you have to remember, these drivers are what kept the country going through a very difficult period, which is the pandemic. They kept hauling and they kept our country going, really, in a very difficult time. And so we're finally getting through that process, and now it's another obstacle that's been placed in front of us unnecessarily, in my opinion. This isn't making us more secure. This is just adding another obstacle and making these drivers sit in line for 6 hours on end is unreasonable, and I hope it ends. I hope it ends soon.
And I would guess, and you tell me if I'm wrong, that this is definitely making worse the supply chain problems, right? Like, we're literally watching the supply chain problem right now. It's going to cause more inflation as you get fewer goods crossing, and so the goods that we do cross are going to cost us more. And then I'm going to guess if your truck drivers begin to leave and you have to hire new ones, you're going to have to pay more to get them. So prices are going to go up to cross this stuff, and you're going to see even more inflation down the road. So this is not going to end well if this goes on much further. We've got to end this now, right?
I 100% agree. It's not just drivers, it's also equipment. All those trailers that used to cross up from Mexico on a daily basis are now accumulating on the Mexican side of the border, and they're becoming little mini warehouses. They're storing product. And so what happens with future production? That future production is going to need more trailers to be positioned, and all those trailers are sitting at the border stuck. So that's going to drive the cost of equipment further up. It's going to cause further inflation in a time where we don't really need any more added pressure to inflation. So yeah, it's definitely an unfortunate situation.
That's right. That's right. Before we close, I'm going to ask Chris and Cynthia, who are our camera operators today, if you all are seeing any questions or comments on the live stream that we can ask of Rafa, or that I can help to answer. We have, for the first time since we've been here, we've started to see trucks move, and I don't know if they're ending the inspections on the DPS side for the night, which would be great, so these drivers can get their loads across and get them into the warehouses, meet the US drivers on this side, who then take them up to Michigan, Ohio, and the 47 other states of the union. But that's a good sign that we're seeing right now. Maybe DPS is watching the live stream right now, and they're feeling the pressure from all of you in your comments. So thank you all, please keep it up. Maybe they heard from Rafa about what this is doing to his drivers and to the economy here in Laredo and to Texas, but we're glad just for the first time since we've been here that we're starting to see some of these trucks move. Chris, Cynthia, any comments that you've got?
So for me, somebody wanted to know who did this, who made the decision to change the process of the inspections. That was one question that came up.
So the governor announced this last week. He announced two things. One, he was going to rent buses to take migrants up to Washington, D.C. and dump them, in the Capitol or at the White House to make a political point. Although the migrants who are going to get on the buses have to do so willingly and have to volunteer. I'm not sure how that's working out. And then the other announcement he made that is far more serious to our economy here in Texas is these mandatory 100% inspections that is clogging up the arteries of our economy here in Texas and for the country. As many of you know, we manufacture things with Mexico, at least we do here in Texas. So as Rafa said, it's car parts, it's consumer electronics, it's the produce, much of which is grown in Mexico, then brought over to Texas. It's warehoused and then sent deeper into the United States. So we depend on one another for our economies, and this is shutting down a big part of our economy. And that was Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott made that decision next week. We are calling on Greg Abbott to end this because it's hurting the Texas economy. It's hurting those who work these jobs, and it's hurting small businesses like Rafa's here in Laredo.
Another question that I got is, do the truck drivers get paid after they deliver the load? Is that,
I'm going to ask Rafa to answer. How do these drivers get paid? What does this mean for them?
Sure. So on average, the drivers cost about 4 times a day, so they make a living on and get paid per border crossing. So when they're crossing 4 times a day, that adds up, and so essentially now they're getting paid 4 times less what they'd usually make on a given week. And so tell me who can live off making 4 times less what they usually make on a week. I mean, it would hurt anybody. And so I feel for them. But there's really not much I can do. I just don't want it to get to a point where they get fed up, justifiably so, and then just decide to stay home. And that's going to cause even bigger issues.
Yeah.
And last question, this is for you, Rafa. Somebody's asking, what message do you have for Governor Abbott?
I'm in favor of border security. I don't think we're having the crisis that he's saying is happening happen on the initial trucks. I think there's a way to have dialogue, to bring the international trade community into those discussions and find a way to solve this issue together. But this obviously isn't the way to do so, and I'm not sure he thought it through, because this is only going to have, in my opinion, major negative consequences. And so I would respectfully ask him to reconsider and to remove the inspections and bring us to the negotiating table and see how we can assist him in achieving our mutual goals.
I think that's very reasonable and makes all the sense in the world, and it's what we expect of those in Austin to listen to the communities that their policies are going to affect. And this near shutdown of commercial traffic at our ports of entry, it's really hurting Laredo, as you hear from Rafa. It's hurting his drivers. I mean, these are the men and women who are working some of the toughest jobs that we all depend on so that we can have the things that we enjoy in our lives. Groceries literally at the store, the ability to find the things that we want when we have a supply chain crisis in the country already. It's producing more inflation, it's driving up prices and the costs of living in the United States. He could have started by asking the people of Laredo, and they would have told him that. So it's time for Texas to end this policy and for us to make common sense policies and find common sense solutions with the common ground of the people here on the border and the people across Texas. Not a Democrat or Republican thing, just a common sense thing. And we need to see more of that in Texas going forward. We appreciate everybody who is joining us from wherever you are in Texas right now. We want to make sure that while we're here in Laredo and in the community that is most impacted by this, that we have a chance to tell you the story from here and with the aid of people who understand this, live it better than anyone else. So thank you all for joining us today. Rafa, thank you for coming out. We really appreciate it. Yeah. And then we want to thank our friend Sergio Mora who helped connect us here with Rafa, with this spot. He's just been such a good friend to us, and his brother Ivan, who's here with us today. Very grateful to you all. We love you, Laredo. And then McAllen, we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. And Chris, I think we're having a press conference in the morning. Is that in McAllen?
It's in McAllen.
Stay tuned on this very same issue, and we're looking forward to talking with you all then. Gracias y adios.